History of television. International perspective. The first successful demonstration of television was in San Francisco on September 7, 1927. This system was designed by Philo Taylor Farnsworth, a 21-year-old inventor, whereas Boris Rosin in Russia had conducted some crude experiments in transmitting image 16 years before Farnsworth's successful experiment. There were other sporadic experiments too in other parts of the world. For example, John Logie Baird in England and Charles Francis Jenkins in the United States in the 1920s. However, Farnsworth's invention, which scanned images with a beam of electrons, can be regarded as the direct ancestor of modern television. The first image he transmitted on it was a simple line. Soon he aimed his primitive camera at a dollar sign to answer an investor's queries. When are we going to see some dollars in this thing, Farnsworth? Early development. In USA, RCA, the company that dominated the radio business in the country, invested $50 million in the development of electronic television. In 1939, RCA televised the opening of the New York World Fair, which also made President Franklin Delano Roosevelt the first president to appear on television. World War II slowed the development of television as companies like RCA turned their attention to military production. Full-scale commercial television broadcasting in USA began in the United States only in 1947. In 1947, the House Committee on Un-American Activities began an investigation of the film industry, and Senator Joseph R. McCarthy claimed that there was a visible communist infiltration in broadcasting too. Political beliefs suddenly became grounds for getting fired. Most of the producers, writers, and actors who were accused of having had left wing leanings found themselves blacklisted, unable to get work. CBS even instituted a loyalty oath for its employees. Among the few individuals in television well positioned enough and brave enough to take a stand against McCarthyism was the distinguished former radio reporter Edward R. Murrow. In 1954, the US Senate censored McCarthy and CBS's security office was closed down. Between 1953 and 1955, television programming began to take some steps away from radio formats. The programming that dominated the two major networks in the mid 1950s borrowed heavily from another medium, theatre. In 1964, color broadcasting began on prime-time television. The FCC initially approved a CBS color system, then swung in RCA's favor after Sarnoff swamped the marketplace with black and white sets compatible with RCA color. The CBS color system was not compatible with black and white sets and would have required the purchase of new sets. Public broadcasting. A Carnegie Commission report in 1967 recommended the creation of a fourth non-commercial public television network built around the educational non-profit stations already in operation throughout the United States. See Television Non-Commercial. Congress created the public broadcasting system that year. Unlike commercial networks, which are centered in New York and Los Angeles, PBS's key stations, many of which produce programs that are shown throughout the network, are spread across the country. PBS comprises more than 300 stations, more than any commercial network. PBS funds come from three major sources: congressional appropriations, viewer donations, and private corporate underwriters. International growth. Growth of television in development followed different patterns in other countries. Often, government, not private corporations, was the owner. In Great Britain, the British Broadcasting Corporation, the country's dominant radio broadcaster, established and retained dominance over television. The BBC, funded by tax on the sale of television sets, established a worldwide reputation for producing quality programming. The Canadian Broadcasting Corporation also functioned independent of government support, albeit due to commercial pressures, however, maintained the seriousness of much of its news and public affairs programming. France's major television networks enjoyed government patronage. However, there was protest in France that it led to the tilt in news coverage towards the ruling party. By the late 1980s and 1990s, as cable and direct satellite television systems increased the number of channels, the hold of these government funded networks began to weaken. Most countries around the world began moving more toward the US model of privately owned, advertiser supported television network. National perspective. Now that you have been apprised of the international scenario of the growth and development of television, let us come to the national perspective. India resisted television for a long time, but it got a boost during the 1980s. From the 90s, Indian television history spanned out in an entirely different way. As per the Information and Broadcasting Ministry website, till 6th March 2012, the number of television channels beaming into and out of India are 831. We will now discuss the multifarious nature of growth of this challenging media. Television in India. As mentioned earlier, the National Planning Committee, convened by the Indian National Congress, set up a subcommittee on communication to offer recommendations for development of communication for independent India. After independence of the country in 1947, the new Indian government adopted development communications as the mainstay of communication policies. But it is interesting to note that Nehru resisted television. In fact, many call it ironical as Nehru was quite well read, aware of developments elsewhere, and admired the Soviet Union, where the use of newspapers and films for state goals had received great attention and patronage from the government. Before Chanda Committee, no review of the broadcasting policy was done in India. The committee was formed in 1964 under the chairmanship of Ashok K. Chanda and was called the Committee on Broadcasting and Information Media. The committee report strongly reflected the development imperatives that governed the philosophy of broadcasting in the 60s and the 70s. It blamed insufficient allocation of resources for the development of the mass media for the inadequate information, poor motivation, and insufficient participation by the masses in the country's development program. It may be mentioned here that the committee was mainly looking at the status of radio, as television was still confined to just Delhi. However, the report of the committee did look futuristically at the growth of television too. Though Nehru was hesitant about introducing television in India, but scientists like Vikram Sarabhai argued that television should be given special priority for accelerating national development. He believed in the power of technology in taking forward the national agenda for implementing schemes of economic and social development. This was of particular significance for population living in isolated rural countries. Looking at the future, the growth of the news channels of 24/7 format with either political leader or business conglomerates owning most of them is now the trend in the contemporary history of Indian television. Cross media ownership and foreign direct investment has changed the entire political economy of television sector. The future is full of anticipation and apprehension as we need to remember that this entire growth story has been charted in the background of media policy vacuum. The latest debates had been on paid news and regulation, and it will be interesting to observe which way it pans out. Digital media. Every industry is relooking and reinventing various processes like production, resource management, marketing, and aligning it to the rules of the digital world. Media industry too has undergone a sea change through the digital transformation process. Each and every function of a media Each and every function of a media organization is affected by the new technologies in recent years. While some media houses were very prompt and active in embracing these changes, others lagged behind. Laggards through could not resist the change for long and had to hop to the digital B and begin to survive in the industry. Slowly, they too embraced technology's meaningful role in the digital world. Understanding digital, online, and new media. In the context of media, there are a number of terms which are used interchangeably like new media, information and communication technologies, digital media, online media, multimedia, convergence, media, etc. There are some overlaps, but the meaning varies with the context. Let us explore the meaning of these terms. Information and communication technologies. According to the World Bank, ICT consists of hardware, software, networks, and media for collection, storage, processing, transmission, and presentation of information, voice, data, text, images. Digital media. The digital process breaks down all information, data, text, graphics, audio, pictures, or video into a sequence of numbers, digits, transport it by wire, cable, or broadcast frequency to a destination, and then reassembles it back into its original form. Digital media refers to audio, video, and photo content that has been encoded, digitally compressed. Encoding content involves converting audio and video input into a digital media file such as a Windows media file. After digital media is encoded, it can be easily manipulated, distributed, and rendered, played by computers, and is easily transmitted over computer networks. Example of digital media types include Windows Media Audio (WMA), Windows Media Video (WMV), MP3, JPEG, and AVI. New media. New media refers to those digital media that are interactive, incorporate two-way communication, and involve some form of computing as opposed to old media such as telephone, radio, and TV, according to Robert Logan. 2010. Online media. This is a generic term often used loosely to describe digital information access, retrieval, or dissemination. This means accessing information on internet via modem or telephone line. Multimedia. Multimedia means use of more than one media technique, text, audio, still images, moving images to tell a story. A multimedia news story then is any piece that uses two or more media to tell it. The above mentioned terms are deeply linked and thus are difficult to distinguish. The significance of limiting this definition is largely contextual. While the information and communication technology encompasses everything from hardware to software and also includes dissemination of information, the focus is on what makes any information digital in the digital media definition. In new media, stress is on how the digital media is being used with interaction and two-way communication as its important feature. Multimedia, however, is the combination of two or more media techniques which is easily possible only when the information is available in digital format. While there is an overlapping basis for these, however, each of these terms have some distinct feature. For this chapter, the term digital media will be used to include online platforms, social media, new digital tools, and the new ways of packing and disseminating information, all in context of media industry. Characteristics of digital media. There has been a massive growth in the popularity of digital media world over in the last decade. In fact, digital media is seen as the threat to the legacy media, where wherever there is a decline in newspapers' readership, digital has been quoted as one of the major reasons. Whether digital is responsible for the decline in the growth of legacy media will be explored in these subsections later in this unit. In this section, the focus will be on the characteristics that made digital media a popular platform. Interactivity. The most important characteristic that distinguishes digital media from traditional media is interactivity. It allows people to rate, share, like, and comment on any message. There is a shift from the limited interactivity which traditional media offered earlier in the forms of letters to the editor or the feedback programs on TV and radio to the unlimited interactivity that digital media offers. This interactivity not only allows people to respond or react to the messages constructed by the media houses, but it also turns consumer into a producer, wherein people are not just consuming media messages, but they are also constructing media messages. This feature has turned passive consumers into active producers. Most of the news portals nowadays are offering opportunities to the users to interact with the content in case of interactive stories, interact with the producers of the content, and are also providing space for the user generated content. Report for CNN is an example of how mainstream media encourages its audience to interact with the platform. Here, the interaction is not just by writing comments or rating stories done by CNN, but I Report for CNN is an interactive international monthly half-hour TV program showcasing the most newsworthy and informative I report contributions and citizen journalism reports on the internet. Besides sending it to the platform, citizens can post it on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter with the hashtag CNN report. Digital media in India. Digital landscape. India is going through a digital revolution. The amount of growth which India has seen in terms of internet penetration is unprecedented. India has become second largest country in the world in terms of internet users with 462 million people connected with internet after China. The penetration is 34.8% according to the www.internetlivestats.com. Internet Live Stats is a part of the Real Statistic project which provides live internet data. The government's Digital India program has been launched by the Department of Electronics and Information Technology, Ministry of Communications and Information Technology. Government of India has given film to digital media in India. The Digital India campaign is centered around three visions: digital infrastructure as a core utility for every citizen, governance and services on demand, digital empowerment of citizens. All the digital initiatives to fulfill the above mentioned visions will contribute significantly in strengthening digital media in India. While it has already contributed in increasing the number of internet users in India, the implementation of digital infrastructure as a core utility to every citizen will also increase the internet penetration, which is low as compared to other countries. India has also seen tremendous growth in mobile use, both for data as well as voice. Though it took 2 decades to reach a billion connections covering over 500 million unique subscribers, India has become one of the largest mobile markets in the world. This trend encouraged people in the media industry to take media mobile apps seriously. Number of media houses have created their own apps so that they can connect with those 500 million subscribers. Also, because of the popularity of the platforms like WhatsApp and Facebook, there is a need to repurpose content for those who are consuming media messages using these platforms. Media industry researches have shown that media content creation, access, and consumption have gone through enormous changes in the second decade of the 21st century globally as well as in India. And shift would be more dramatic over the next 5 years by the end of 22. Three main factors responsible for this trend are technology and internet access, especially fast mobile data and broadband, gadgets, especially smartphones and streaming media devices, the app ecosystem. The growth in digital advertising has been the maximum over the last few years as compared to other media segments. The reasons for this massive growth is the increase in internet user base, which includes mobile internet users. Digital media in India is growing at a very fast pace, keeping in view the various initiatives under Digital India, which will strengthen the digital infrastructure. This trend will continue. The Indian media industry has embraced digital, and all the platforms, including print, magazine, TV, and radio, are adapting themselves to remain relevant in the digital era. The digital media offers a lot of opportunities like new ways of storytelling, marketing, and research, but at the same time, it is being criticized for creating lot of chaos by spreading false information And the issue like trolling has caught the attention of many in the recent years. The medium offers a lot of features. It is up to the people on how these features can be exploited constructively. And the visions of Digital India puts it very succinctly that with digital infrastructure for every citizen and government services on demand, there is also a great need for digital empowerment of citizens if India has to become a digitally empowered society and knowledge economy. Emerging trends in digital media. Data driven journalism. Data journalism, big data, data analytics, and buzzwords nowadays. Data is being used by media houses to tell stories. Open data movement has made it easier for communicators and journalists to access their use data. Many countries are realizing their data as open data so that it can be used by the public for various purposes. In India, www.data.government.in platform hosts data from all the ministries and departments. The data The data.gov.in is the result of the National Data Sharing and Accessibility Policy (NDSAP), which was notified by Government of India in March 2012 to promote a culture of data sharing and data utility for meeting larger socio-economic goals. Adhering to the norms laid out by this policy, the National Informatics Center (NIC) has set up Open Government Data (OGD) platform India, which is a state-of-the-art dynamic data sharing platform espousing the principle of open government data. The portal has many rich features to support this policy, such as search and discovery mechanism for instant access to various datasets of great importance, community engagements around published datasets for innovative applications on open data with an ability to provide customized citizen services, tools, apps, visualization, so developed by using this platform has played a pivotal role in increasing the level of transparency and citizens' participation in the governance process. It is curated by a group of leading open data experts from around the world, including representatives from local, regional, and national governments, international organizations such as the World Bank, and numerous NGOs. The data available on these platforms are freely available for the researchers to work on. According to David Anderton, freelance journalist, data journalism is bridging the gap between statisticians and wordsmiths. Data journalism is about using sheer scale and range of digital information to tell compelling stories. The focus in data journalism is not on what happened but on what a particular development means. There are a number of digital tools which are available to work on database stories. Some of the tools are as follows: Google Fusion Table, Lucid Chart, Silk, Infogram, Pictochart, Tableaux, Carto. This presented a holistic view of the Digital media in India is growing at a very fast pace, keeping in view the various initiatives under Digital India which will strengthen the digital infrastructure. This trend will continue. The Indian media industry has embraced digital and all the platforms including print, magazine, TV and radio are adapting themselves to remain relevant in the digital era. The digital media offers a lot of opportunities like new ways of storytelling, marketing, and research, but at the same time, it is being criticized for creating a lot of chaos by spreading false information, and the issue like trolling has caught the attention of many in the recent years. The medium offers lot of features. It is up to the people on how these features can be exploited constructively. And the visions of Digital India puts it very succinctly that with digital infrastructure for every citizen and government services on demand, there is also a great need for digital empowerment of citizens if India has to become a digitally empowered society and knowledge economy. Thank you very much. That's all for today.